Ladies, find out who you are with Pastor Natalie Reid in Releasing Inner Beauty.
Welcome back to Releasing Inner Beauty Ministries broadcast. I am Pastor Natalie Reid from Wilmington, North Carolina. We're going to continue with Don't Let Your Issue Hide You. Last week we talked about the woman with the issue of blood. And we found out that this woman with her issue had spent all of her living. She had spent all of her wealth, and no one could heal her. No physician could heal her, or no physician could really tell her or give her an assurance that this bleeding would stop. And this week I want to talk for a few minutes in continuing with this issue or this flux of blood. Now, last week on the last broadcast, we talked about the word healed. And I'm reading from Luke, the 8th chapter, the 43rd verse. And a woman having an issue of blood 12 years, which had spent all her living upon physicians, neither could neither be healed of any. So I want to talk about this word healed. Neither could be healed. She could be healed of any. And this word healed in the Greek text means to wait upon or to relieve of disease. No one could relieve her of this issue. In other words, she could not figure out why this issue was plaguing her. She could not figure out for 12 long years why this flux of blood continued and continued. And I know some of you that's listening to this broadcast wonder yourself, for years you have been dealing with an issue. You have been dealing with issues, or you have been dealing with situations that you feel no one can help you. Perhaps you've seen a psychiatrist. Perhaps you've been to doctor after doctor. Perhaps you've just been talking to your friends about this one issue or several issues that tend to plague you or to bother you. Now, the Bible says that this woman in verse 44 came behind him and touched the border of the cloak of his garment, and immediately her issue of blood staunched. Now, I want to talk to you here for a few minutes, this word issue. Now, I, like some of you, have dealt with issues long periods of time. That's right, long periods of time. There have been times when I did not understand what I was going through. Did not even know if there would be somebody that would be able to help me through this issue. Now, that word blood there in the Greek means principle of life. Now, at that moment, that blood was the only thing that she could focus on, which was her issue at that time. And at times when we're going through situations and circumstances, that's the principal thing in our life. We tend to not be able to see God and his goodness. We tend to not be able to see his mercies. All we could see at that moment is our present state or our present place of being in this issue. Now, the Bible says that she came behind him and touched him. She had to press through a crowd of people to just touch him. And immediately her issue of blood, it staunched. Now, this word staunch here means histemi, which means to abide or to appoint, to bring or to continue. It even means a covenant. So when she touched the edge of his garment, she did not understand when her bleeding stopped. Immediately there was an appointment for her, or there was a covenant being established with her. Now, I can imagine this woman being fearful of coming out into the crowd to even try and touch him. And like you and I, we go to church, but in our going to church, we tend to still be a little fearful of coming the way that we come to church or the way that we come in the midst of people, we're still a little optimistic about going in the midst of people. But if you can just get in the midst of God's people, if you can just find out where God is in the midst of his people, you'll find out that there is also an appointment for you. Now, when her issue starts, immediately Jesus said, "Who touched me? Who touched me?" And all of the people, Peter wanted to deny, and he said, when all denied, Peter and they that were with him said, "Master, the multitude throng thee and press thee, and sayest thou, who touched me?" In other words, Peter was saying, wait a minute, Lord, all of these people that are around you, and you're saying, who touched you? He was not really understanding that he was representing the people, or being a part of the people that this woman was able to press through to get to Jesus. And in this day, we are the people that God is present in. We're the people that need to come together in a crowd so that people like you that are watching this broadcast will feel free enough to come in the midst of a people to touch or to tap into who Jesus is. So now, can you imagine Peter saying, all these people, Lord, and you're saying, who touched you? Anybody could have touched you. But at that moment, just anybody didn't touch him. He knew that somebody had touched him. He knew that somebody that was sick and tired of allowing their issue to hide them or allowing themselves to be hid behind their issue touched him. I want to say this right here. You have to get sick and tired of your issues hindering you. You have to get sick and tired of these issues plaguing or tormenting you and say to yourself, I want something different. I want to be ministered to by somebody that could minister to me. And just take this woman who at all odds knew that she wasn't supposed to be in the midst of people. She understood that her issue kept her from coming out, getting in the crowd. And like you feeling right now, I felt back 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago. I felt like everything that I was going through would keep me, and nobody wanted to be around me. Nobody wanted to hear about my issues. Nobody was concerned about what I was going through. Oh yes, I dealt with issues, still dealing with issues. I've just come to the understanding to understand that if I can get in the midst of God's people, if I can just tap into who I am in God, my issue can be dealt with also. And I'll encourage you that your issue can be dealt with. There's no issue that you deal with is too big for God to deal with. And so Jesus goes on to say in replying to Peter, and Jesus said, somebody have touched me, for I perceive that virtue is gone out of me. So Jesus knew, even though he was in the midst of a crowd of people and the multitudes pressed against him, there was something different about this touch. There was something different about this woman, because this woman gave it everything she had to press through the multitudes of the crowd.